I'm Zim, and you're listening to the Helpful Photographer Podcast in collaboration with New York City Photo Safari. To register for a safari, please visit newyorkcityphotosafari.com. When you buy a camera with interchangeable lenses, it likely came with a medium zoom lens. In other words, an 18 to 55 or a 24 to 70 millimeter lens. People often ask, what should they buy next? But as I often say, should is a strong word. Here are the things you'll need to consider for your next lens. If you find yourself often shooting in situations where your current lens won't allow you to get back far enough, or you can't seem to incorporate enough of the scene, then you'll want to add an ultra-wide zoom lens to your bag, in addition to the medium kit lens. Something like a 10 to 24 millimeter for a crop sensor, or 16 to 35 millimeter for a full frame. These are great lenses for shooting exterior and interior architectural photography, because very often you can't get back far enough. This is also a great lens for landscapes as you're trying to incorporate more. On the other hand, if you tend to shoot objects that are far in the distance and you find that you can't get close enough, then you'll want a long zoom lens. Something like a 70 to 200 or 55 to 250, and so on. Of course, if you're shooting birds, you may consider something even longer than that. On the other hand, if you're finding that you're shooting things that are very close, but the minimum focusing distance on your lens is what's keeping you from getting closer to your subject, then you need a macro lens. Macro lenses usually come in two varieties, 50 millimeters and 100 millimeters. The shorter focal length of the 50 millimeter macro will allow you to do things like lay on the ground and shoot up on flowers and navigate tighter spaces, while the 100 millimeter will allow you to stand a little further back away from your subject. Very often when shooting macro, if you're very close to the subject, you may obstruct the light or touch things nearby, so the extra focal length of the 100 millimeters will give you a little bit more elbow room to maneuver. It will also give you more compression, which is often desirable when you're shooting macro. Lastly, it should be noted that the traditional focal length for portraits on a full-frame sensor is 105 millimeters, so your macro can double as a great portrait lens, especially if you're shooting full-frame. In all of these instances, the question you will want to answer is how fast of a lens should you buy? I'm talking about the maximum f-stop. Most zoom lenses have a variable f-stop, meaning that your capability will change depending on where you are in the zoom ring. This is usually 3.5 to 5.6 and relegated to consumer-rated lenses, whereas pro-rated lenses are capable of a fixed aperture throughout the zoom. In other words, no matter where you zoom on the lens, you'll be able to maintain the same f-stop. Most pro-rated zoom lenses can hold an f2.8 throughout the zoom. Although being able to gather up to 2 stops more light is a huge gain, it does come with a cost, both financially and in back pain. These lenses tend to be 30 to 60% more expensive than their consumer-rated counterpart. But an even bigger problem is their weight, which can also be anywhere from 30 to 60% heavier. So the question is whether or not you're willing to carry so much weight around. To be clear, for all of this pain, you're not just getting a lens that's gathering more light, you're also likely to get a lens that is also sharper, more durable, and has faster focus. So there are definitely more benefits. Lastly, what about prime lenses? Too often bloggers out there are recommending the 50 millimeter prime. As a rule, I'm not really into prime for most photographers because they only do one thing, which makes them very expensive with regards to your wallet and your bag. Although most of them are very, very sharp and faster, most photographers can't capitalize on these benefits due to their limitations. So if you can't capitalize on those benefits, why would you put up with that much pain? If you have the ultra-wide, the medium, and the long zoom lenses, you'll pretty much cover all of your bases for the vast majority of your shooting. And this is why those 3 lenses are often dubbed the holy trinity of lenses. Whether or not you're using the pro version of these lenses, your bag will be pretty heavy as it is. So why on earth would you weigh yourself down with a lens that only does one thing? Unless your 3 lenses doesn't do that one thing, like a macro or the 400 millimeter 2.8. Okay, that's it for today. I hope that was helpful. Until next time, keep on shooting.